What doesn't need to exist anymore but won't go away? Bedbugs. Zero ecological value, and an expensive nightmare to eradicate. I've never had them, but I've heard enough horror stories to hope I never will. Fun fact, they almost went extinct in the 90s. But somehow, no one knows how, the population started growing and now they're worse than ever. According to a former colleague who used to do pest control used to use a chemical that almost wiped out bedbugs to the point that everyone considered them to be extinct. Unfortunately, that chemical had a ridiculously long residuals that the EPA banned those chemicals or severely limited their use. Because of this, bedbugs returned. Nightmare is putting it pretty lightly. You lose sleep, you gain paranoia, you feel like you're going absolutely fucking bonkers, and for years after you've gotten rid of them you'll still feel one little tingle while in bed, and it sets you off to frantically checking the entire bed for them again even if they aren't there. I have never had them in my home, but I got eaten alive by them at a hotel I stayed at once. My fiancé in the bed next to me had not a mark on him, while I had to Google to find out what my bites were. Only realized it because they bit in groups of 3 to 4 in a line. Now anytime I stay at a hotel I get so paranoid about it, which sucks because I'm one of those people that gets naturally itchy as I fall asleep. Allegedly it's the body checking to see if you're asleep by sending different signals? I don't know. Just always happens to me as I'm falling asleep, which doubles the paranoia of thinking a bedbug just bit me because I'm itching. Got them once, took an entire year to eradicate them. Threw away all furniture and mattresses. 5 years later and I still have 5 to 6 bags of clothing and bedding in vacuum-sealed bags. I check for them everywhere. It was a nightmare. Pro tip for anyone that might have to deal with them. Rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle kills them on contact. Just don't mix with a flame. Don't burn your house down. Fax machines? No, healthcare provider. I do not have access to a fax machine. Fuck HIPAA, and email me my fucking documents. At my job we get a fair amount of faxes still, much of it medical related for that reason. What cracks me up though is that we no longer have an actual fax machine. Faxes are just scanned by the system, and then emailed to us. I went to NYC in 2019 for a conference for work. Arrive at the hotel, my company forgot to pay for the room. I didn't have enough room on my credit cards to pay that kind of bill up front. So I called my boss. He called the hotel. They needed to email him auth forms that he had to fax back. It's late and the poor guy drove around trying to find places that could even fax it for him. Took hours to get me in that room, and goodness those front desk people were real jerks about it. Next time that happens, there are a ton of websites that will fax any document you upload to them, most for free. This drives me crazy. They're not even that secure. If someone is still using a POTS line for fax machine and I know the number, I could do my best action movie imitation and use alligator clips to send or receive faxes. There are plenty of secure ways to transfer documents that don't involve this garbage. Seriously. Encrypted email is many magnitudes more secure than fax. Largest reason they still exist is because of legal precedent. There's a legal precedent that a signature that has been faxed is still a legal signature, but there's no such legal precedent for a scanned and emailed signature despite it being fundamentally the same thing on the back end. News being opinionated and not providing all the facts. Absolutely this. There is a serious problem with national news favoring a political party or candidate, especially if they're not upfront about it. I want to know what's happening, not sort through the same story on 5 different media outlets to see my way through an agenda. Expensive coffins and embalming. Just throw me in a hole or burn me when I die. I will not come back as a ghost to haunt anyone, I promise. That sounds like something a future haunting ghost would say. As someone who died in 1827, this isn't true. When I die, just throw me in the trash. My state just legalized human composting, so guess what I'm planning to have done to my body? The crack in the door between stalls in a public restroom. We have a tiny gap in Australia, in some stalls, non-existent in others. When I visited the US, I couldn't believe the almost inch gap. Revolting. You could just about make eye contact with someone walking by. I made eye contact with someone the other day, and did a little wave. This is an American thing. I couldn't believe it on my first visit. I initially thought it was poor workmanship. Facebook. I remember when it first came out, and I thought it was pretty cool. Boy oh boy, if I only knew. Yes, we thought we were so cool when our college was added to the system back in 2005. It was actually fun at first when all it was poking, messaging, and wall posting. There were no ads and no weird, oversharing statuses. I haven't posted anything on Facebook in a year and a half. Daylight savings. It never needed to exist. The story you were told about Ben Franklin and farmers was a lie, or rather, it was the setup to a joke, and people act like it was serious because some idiot convinced us to do it years later. Farmers get up when the sun comes up. It doesn't matter what it says on the clock. Wasn't it introduced to stop the waste of daylight hours in the morning when everyone was asleep and give us more daylight in the evenings for sitting inside and browsing Reddit? I learned it was about saving energy, hence the savings part in daylight savings. Never really understood where the stuff about farmers came from, especially given that they will and do work in the dark. Flat Earth idea. Only idiots believe in flat Earth. I believe in hexadecimal Earth. Velociraptor Earth is the only way. But Earth is a little over 70% water and none of it is carbonated, so it's technically flat. This is the most convincing argument I've heard so far. COVID-19. Shit was never needed. And won't go away. Welcome to year 2 of the 2-week lockdown. Chris Brown. Seriously, how many people need to say he raped, drugged, and assaulted them before it's taken seriously enough for him to stay in jail? Clearly, he's not learning from past mistakes. And so many people still happily work with him. Phone books. I just inherited a home from an elderly family member that passed away. I just found a huge pile of phone books. And he was very tech savvy. He posted on Facebook 2 days before he died. He was in his 90s, used an iPhone. But I guess he just couldn't give up the phone books. My house has a specifically made phone book drawer in the kitchen cabinet. It now houses documents related to appliances, roof, arc. For-profit prisons. Influencers. Most of them only do what's trendy and don't set any new trend. Therefore, they're not influencers, but influenced. Promoters. They are promoters. Credit scores. Why is my credit score going down just for having it checked? Why does it go down when you pay things off or close accounts? WTF. Contrary to popular belief, it's not a reflection of how trustworthy you are. It tells creditors how likely you are to be profitable if they lend to you. The existence of early payment fees should be example enough. But look at what else affects your credit score. Closing an account, having a zero balance, not using your card for long periods of time, etc. It all boils down to 2 things, being a waste of time and being a risky borrower. Your credit score is just a $sign rating to lenders. Old politicians. Half of them fall asleep during meetings. Looks like a damn retirement home in there. Health insurance companies. Why am I paying a middleman to deny my healthcare while they make a profit and also pay for a huge staff to operate the business? Universal healthcare already FS. YouTube ads that you can't skip? Thank you? Absolutely. It's a crime. Fuck. That's how I feel about it. Genuine anger. It's such a fucking dick-ass thing to do. Still not enough to make me pay for YouTube though. Astrology. Especially in South India. I couldn't marry the love of my life because of it. I don't think I am ready for my marriage ever. Wait, really? I didn't know people took it that seriously. I thought it was just a hobby. In India, astrology is a lot more than just your sign. It is used to determine who you can marry, and when can you marry. Also used to find a suitable time for making an expensive purchase, Muhurth. I still think it's a bunch of bullshit. Racism. The appendix and wisdom teeth. The appendix actually serves a purpose. It houses backups of good bacteria. So when your gut bacteria gets wiped out for whatever reason, the bacteria from your appendix repopulates your gut. I have read that too. If I remember correctly, I read that the appendix independently arose in 7 unrelated mammal species. Talk about convergent evolution. If it arose in 7 independent species, it must be highly beneficial. 8-hour days. I want you to think about how long that actually is. Nobody should need to work 2 to 10 anymore, especially with how crazy I hear labor is these days. If everyone's looking for a job and everybody's hiring, why am I still being fucked? Dozens of US government agencies whose purposes have been fulfilled decades ago, over 100 years for some, but the agencies continue to get huge amounts of taxpayer funds. One example, the Rural Electrification Administration, formed in 1935 to make sure rural families have electricity, still gets about $1 billion a year. The Rural Electrification Administration should be repurposed to the Rural Broadband Administration. Most rural families have electricity now, but there are still a lot of rural areas that struggle to receive usable broadband internet. Teletext, it still exists. How else are the dads going to check the sport results? I hate how accurate this is, because my dad is downstairs with a 99% possibility of checking it for sports right now. Phone books, somehow they still magically appear on my doorstep every few months or so. Here, I printed part of the internet for you. Totally a North American thing, but fuck tipping. Just pay staff and charge customers what it costs. None of this subjective 0 to 20% service fee that becomes a mandatory 18% when you have a party of 8. One-ply toilet paper. The damn penny. No one uses them, they cost more to make than they're even worth, and inflation is so high that they are essentially worthless anyway. It literally isn't worth my time to pick up a penny if I see one on the street. Other countries have done away with their lowest denomination currency with no ill effects. But as always, America likes to stubbornly cling to outdated nonsense just because. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.